Shalom. I will start by giving all the praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashum, Yahushai, Bashum, Arachakwadash. Double honor to the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone who rule well. Peace, blessings, and salutations unto the hopeful elect tabernacle of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And this lesson is inspired by the video that was done yesterday. This was Elder Apostle Tahar's video. Shame, shame, shame. The updated must-watch video. And who do you have? My man Bishop Ambivalent Nate, and he's on the platform with Philip Scott, all right, the African Diaspora News Channel, and they get into the topic of marriage because Nate believes that this is part of what separates their congregation or their organization from the other Israelite organizations. That most of us agree that polygyny is lawful, but they teach different. They don't believe polygyny is lawful until we're in the kingdom. Which that's a error. Coming from Nate and his organization. All right, and he tries to use the office of a bishop and deacon to try to apply that to all men, where the apostles specifically gave that instruction to the bishops and the deacons in the church, that because they have the office of being an overseer of the church, they have to handle certain affairs, dealing with the church, or making sure brothers are built up in the faith, watching over, like the scriptures say, to be diligent to know the state of your flock. So that's a position where you're going to be mainly occupied, so you're not going to have that much time to tend to multiple women. So it's best to just either not even have a woman, or if you're going to have a woman, have just one woman. All right, so that you don't be distracted from tending to the Lord's business. But anyway, this is Apostle Tahar's video. Now I went to the original video, where you start to go into it, and that's what I want to deal with. We're gonna play Nate, saying what he's saying, and then I want to get my pretty much, I basically I want to add to the lesson, all right, and show that Nate, he's just I mean at the end of the day, Nate is following his own spirit, all right, and that's not a good thing. We're not supposed to lean upon our own understanding, especially given the position that he has as an elder bishop. You're not supposed to lean to your own understanding. All right, we let the scriptures deal. So anyway, let's get into it.
The discrepancy comes, for example, 1 Corinthians 7:2, where it reads, "Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband." So many of the Israelites believe in polygamy, or polygyny as they call it today. So that caused an issue because, like myself, I said when I read that, it says let every woman have her own husband. So that was a discrepancy. So many of them want the multiple girlfriends. And from what I can read, I see one wife, like it says, and I'll give you another one. First.
And now this is where he's handling the word deceitfully here, because when you try to understand Apostle Paul's position, they had just had a situation in the church where you had a Israelite, a wicked Israelite, who took his stepmother He took his own father's wife and laid with her. All you have to do is read a couple chapters prior. All right, First Corinthians 5. All right, and he pretty much was in disbelief that that type of shit was going on in the church. Well, Jake was popping his own stepmother, his own father's wife. So Paul had to pretty much go in and teach, how we are to carry ourselves and how to deal when it comes to marriage. All right, basically laying down a protocol, giving advice on how to deal with marriage. All right, because Jake was hot in the pants. The men and the women, they were all hot in the pants, man. Coming from that Greco-Roman world, there's just a lot of freakism going on. So you know, Paul had to address that. All right, and they had to pretty much put everything in order because the Church of Corinth was the most out of order church. That's why there's two different epistles to it because there was a lot of shit out of order going on in the church, a lot of confusion. All right, so reading it, 1 Corinthians 7 and 1 and 2, it says, "Now concerning the things whereof you wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman." Because just to remain pure, to remain without distraction. Yeah, that's a very good thing. You're at an advantage when it comes to the spirit. And if you got that spirit on you, man, you're blessed. But not everybody has that spirit. It says, "Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife." All right, not another man's wife. We don't need men, just passing women around. So let every man have his own wife. We're not going to do that whole pass around thing in the church. And let every woman have her own husband. All right, you stick to to one man. Don't be hopping around. And Nate should know about that. He came from the old school. All the stories that come from the men that were there about how it used to be back then when they had all the women in the congregation. You should already know what time it is. It gets like that. So to lay down the order, all right, everybody, if you with somebody, stay with that person. All right, if you ain't with nobody, then and if you burning, find somebody and make sure that person ain't with somebody else, and y'all stick it out to avoid fornication. We don't need all this, fornication going on in the church. All this adultery. It ain't adultery if a man has two or three women, and those women don't belong to nobody else, no other man. But that's how the church break down with fornication is. They say, oh, it's if you sleeping with another woman outside of your wife as a man, that's fornication. No, it ain't. It becomes fornication if that other woman that you're laying with belongs to another man. But Nate is horrible when it comes to this topic because the stuff that we hear coming from that church, how your woman got to be a believer, she got to be in the truth, she got to keep the holy days and keep the commandments like you in order to be with you. And if she doesn't do that, then you got to pretty much get rid of her. And if you do that, you're going to cause her to go and commit adultery. So this is where we disagree with IUIC. You causing, let me get that. All you doing is causing, a woman when you say that I don't want you around anymore. I don't want to be with you anymore because you don't keep the Sabbath like I keep it. You know, you don't believe what I believe. When in this very same chapter, it tells you that the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. An unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife. Let's get that. 1 Corinthians 7 and 13 and 14, it says, and the woman which have an husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. Right? For if the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife. Like case in point, Timothy's mother. All right, was it Eunice, if I'm not mistaken? Um, she was married to a Jake, but he was a Greek, so he wasn't really a believer. He was straight into that Greek world, believing in the Greek philosophy. Probably didn't have a beard on his face, ate swine, but she was married to him. It wasn't an Edomite, or she would have, because Timothy's mother was a Jewess, so she believed in the Torah, so she wouldn't have been married to no heathen. She was married to an Israelite, but he was a Greek, meaning he had a Greek mindset. But that man, he was pleased to dwell with her. All right, I'm sure he got with her because there were some qualities about her. Okay, and guess what? He had dominion over her, even though she was a believer and he wasn't. But who know if her lifestyle and the way she carried herself and believing on the gospel that he could have eventually converted. You never know, but that can happen. It says, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now are they holy. Okay, so going back, to Nate, he's clearly off. You're not to. The scriptures say, and he knows the scripture, a man has dominion over his woman as long as she lives. Yeah, Romans 7 and verse 1, it says, know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law, how that the law have dominion over a man as long as he liveth. For the woman which have an husband is bound by the law to her husband as so long as he liveth. But if the husband be dead, she is loose from the law of her husband. So that's the only way she could be free from a man, is if he dies. And that's why, even going back to in the law, when a man had a wife, he just married a wife, he couldn't go to war, because if he went to war, it's a possibility that he can die and she would be loose from him. So he would have to cheer her up for a year before he can actually go on, get enlisted and go and fight in battle. You know, it says, verse 3, so then if while her husband liveth, she be married to another man, so, she leaves off from this husband because he put her away for whatever, not for fornication, he just put her away because she don't believe what he believe, or, she ain't keeping the high holy days like he's keeping it. So you put her off and now she's out there, and the hormones is kicking, she's in the flesh, and we know that the woman is the weaker vessel. She gonna get that itch at some point, and she gonna go and find somebody to scratch it. That's just real talk. She's gonna go and be married to another man, which by default she becomes an adulteress. She shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband be dead, she is free from that law, so that she is no adulteress, though she be married to another man. Now let's go to Matthew 19 and verse 9. In Matthew 19, verse 9, it says, and I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication or adultery, and shall marry another, committeth adultery, and whoso marrieth her which is put away doeth commit adultery. All right. Um, let me get the one in. I think there's one in Mark 2. Let's see. Yeah, Mark 10. It's Mark 10 and 11. It says, and he said unto them, this Yahweh Shai speaking, whosoever shall put away his wife and marry another committeth adultery against her. And if a woman shall put away her husband and be married to another, she committeth adultery. So basically, your woman, she can't leave you under no circumstance. Now, if y'all happen to be separated for whatever reason, that's one thing. But going back to 1 Corinthians 7, yeah, it would have to come a time where y'all gonna have to reconcile. But if that don't happen and she go and play the whore, then hey, she did that. But as for you, you have a woman and she's pleased to dwell with you. You can't put her away and then go get with another woman and then not deal with her, because she's gonna get jealous and then she's gonna be like, all right, and she's gonna go and deal with another man, and you just pretty much caused her to commit adultery. So that's why it says you committed adultery against her, because you caused her to. So it's about being responsible. But anyway, let's get back to Nate.
First Timothy chapter 3 and verse 1, where it reads, let me read it. It says, this is a true saying, if a man desire the office of a bishop, he desires a good work. Bishop means leader. It says, a bishop then must be blameless.
Bishop means an elder, an overseer, which is a leadership position, but you're an elder and you're in a position of oversight. You're looking over the flock, the church. All right, making sure everybody's communicating, making sure everybody's laboring, doing what they're supposed to do. All right, but not every brother is an elder. Not every brother holds that position. But I think he expects every man in all his camps to be in that position. But that's, come on, man. How you gonna have a bunch of bishops? So who's gonna be the ones that are submitted to the leaders, the bishops, the elders? Who's up under them? Everybody can't have the same position. But by his logic, that would have to be so, because he does not allow for any of the men up under him to have more than one woman. And he's using the office of a bishop for his basis. And that's very faulty. Anyway, let's keep going.
Husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, aptitude. So reading that, from what I'm seeing, it says one. And we got to learn to grow together. Like the scriptures say, the two shall be one flesh. Then Matthew 19. So I do know that in the coming kingdom on earth, the Bible prophesies that men will have more than one, but that's in the coming kingdom when we are changed. Okay, if I can read it, Phil, if I can read it. So I don't want no one to misunderstand. I love my fellow Israelite brothers and sisters, although there's a discrepancy in understanding in terms of polygamy or polygyny, however they call it. Bear with me. Let me find Isaiah chapter 4 and verse 1. Here we go. Isaiah chapter.
And here's the discrepancy that I have. That you're going to use Isaiah 4 and 1 and try to say that applies in the kingdom. That's not talking about now. You're going to see why that's very faulty. There's something wrong with that. But let me let him cook, and then we'll respond.
4 and verse 1. And it reads, it says, and in that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. In that day shall the branch of the Lord be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the earth shall be excellent and comely for them that are escaped of Israel. So right now we have not escaped. We're all still in captivity. I know that under the old covenant or Old Testament, when we were in our own land, we ruled ourselves, we had our own king. We had many different wives. But when you get to the new covenant, the New Testament, we were in captivity. So from captivity, from Assyrian captivity, Babylonian captivity, Greek captivity, Roman captivity, even today, we did not have multiple wives living in captivity. That's what I see in the scriptures. Many brothers, some sisters disagree with that. So we have to wait for the Lord to come back and straighten all this out.
So he's saying that this is only going to apply in the kingdom when we're finally back in our land and we're not in captivity. I don't see the correlation because when you read Isaiah 4, this is talking about in the midst of trouble, right before the Lord actually comes back and restore peace to Jerusalem. Before that happens, we're going to be in the thick of tribulation. All right. And it's going to be so bad that it's going to be a shortage of men, that there's going to be, women that's going to outnumber the men. These women are going to be desperate to take hold of a man. So let's read this real quick, and then just to, bring context to it. If the Spirit is working with you, then you would understand how we even get to this. You go to the previous chapter. This is why there's going to be 7 women to 1 man. But I'll read this, and then we're going to go to the read up to Isaiah 4:1. It says, Isaiah 4:1, it says, and in that day 7 women shall take hold of 1 man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. And we get this in the another translation, or the NLT. It says, in that day so few men will be left that 7 women will fight for each man, saying, let us all marry you. We will provide our own food and clothing. Only let us take your name so we won't be mocked as old maids. All right, before that wall gets to hit, hey, we want you, and we're gonna put aside the pride. All right, that feminism pride, we're gonna put that away. We done with that. It was a lie. We've been lied to. There's gonna be these women coming back to their senses when they realize shit is real. When reality finally sets in for a lot of them. Because right now they're still on their high horse because they're in their comfort zone. All right, there, like it says in Isaiah 32, it talks about our women being careless. Rise up, you women that are at ease. Hear my speech, you careless daughters. Right now they're careless and they're at ease. So of course they're gonna have that attitude that they have. But they're gonna swallow that pride very quickly. They're gonna be humbled. The Lord's gonna bring them into a humbled estate. All right. And how are they gonna be humbled? You go to the previous chapter, it tells you what the Lord is going to do. All right, Isaiah 3. I'll start at verse 16. And you already know this scripture is going into the curse of our women, mainly, primarily the so-called black women. right? Isaiah 3:16, it says, moreover, the Lord said, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with stretched forth necks, this is why they're careless and at ease, because they're comfortable. All right, society is still intact. You still got, you know, uh your favorite restaurants that are open. You still got plenty of food, plenty of water. You got access to alcohol. Your yan. All right, you got nightclubs, bars. You got a bunch of men, trying to holler, trying to get your number, trying to get your IG or whatever. They get those ego strokes from all those likes and comments, that attention and that validation that they get on a daily basis is why our women have this behavior. The simps. It says walking and mincing as they go and making a tinkling with their feet, right? Although the anklets and them walking with them 4-inch heels or 6-inch heels on, walking with that walk switching, proud as hell, nose to the sky, right? Therefore the Lord will smite with the scab the crown of the heads of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. This is why our women to this day can't really grow long hair. This is why they got to go and get, extensions and weaves, so on and so forth. It says, in that day, the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet and their coals and their round tires like the moon. They're going to lose shape. All right. And the jewelry that they used to wear, the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers, the bonnets and the ornaments of the legs and the headbands and the tablets and the earrings, the rings and the nose jewels, changeable suits of apparel and the mantles and the wimples and the crisping pins. And let's say our women have this now. In the time of Jacob's trouble, they ain't gonna be there ain't gonna be no shopping at Sally's or Rainbows or wherever they shop at. That's a done deal. It's gonna be about survival at that point. So these women gonna be without. They ain't gonna be able to have time to get dolled up. All that's gonna be taken away, and then you're gonna finally get to see how these women really look without filters, without makeup, without jewelry, without the adorning of that outward appearance. So they're gonna definitely be humble. All right, it says the changeable suits of apparel and the mantles and the wimples and the crisping pins, the glasses and the fine linen and the hoods and the veils. And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink, bad odor. All right. In the time of hell, man, just peep. When they ain't gonna have time to keep themselves up like that. Imagine, all the different stores where, women gotta, buy their hygiene products. Imagine all that gone out of the stores. Then what? All right, pH balance off. It says, and instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well set hair, baldness, and instead of a stomach, a girding of sackcloth and burning instead of beauty, thy men shall fall by the sword. This is where you come to the conclusion that it's going to be 7 women to 1 man, because a lot of the men are going to be dying. All right, they're going to be dying in the war. A lot of men are going to be enlisted. They're going to be drafted. There's going to be a draft. You see what's happening over there right now in between Russia and Ukraine, and the buildup. NATO, and America being uh, uh, involved. They're deploying soldiers everywhere. They deploying missiles. putting missile silos up, all type of stuff. So you already know war is gonna happen. Scriptures talk about there being a third world's war. All right, the second war is past, the third war will come quickly. It's three woes, so it's gonna be a lot of men that's gonna die in that war. All right, just like the first two woes, millions in casualties. Then it's going to be bloodshed in the streets too, because you read Second Ezra 15 and 16, it talks about there being a famine, shortage of bread. It's going to be sedition among men invading one another. All right. It says, "And the mighty in the war, and her gates shall lament and mourn, and she being desolate shall sit upon the ground." So these women are going to be in a lot of mourning because they ain't going to have that security, that support system that they're used to. It's going to be a lot of men out there dead. All right. Let's get a quick precept. Let's go to Second Ezra 16. So this clearly ain't talking about in the kingdom. There ain't gonna be no war going on in the kingdom where there's gonna be cause a shortage of men. The Lord said He's gonna make a man more precious than fine gold. When something is precious, that means it's a rarity, man. Yeah, Second Ezra 16, verse 33 and 34. It says, "The virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers, no support. In the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine." So there's a lot of dudes, a lot of these simp ass men out here that ain't gonna make it. More and more than likely, these men are not of the elect. So they're not gonna be preserved. The Lord is not gonna have that hedge over these men. So they're gonna be dying. The Lord's gonna be protecting his elect. So those men are gonna be left with a bunch of women. So let's real quick, what I want to do is let's go over to Isaiah 4, and I want to bring out the commentary, and I believe it was Matthew Henry that went into it. And if you ask me, he actually hit the nail on the head about this. All right, so let's we're gonna read it. And it says, in this chapter we have a threatening of the paucity and scarceness of man, which might fitly enough have been added to the close of the foregoing chapter, to which it has a plain reference. A promise of the restoration of Jerusalem's peace and purity, righteousness and safety in the days of the Messiah. Showing you that in the second verse down to the sixth verse is going into the ushering in of the kingdom. But the first verse, that's what's going to be the situation right before the Messiah returns. Because we're going to be in a process of needing deliverance. We understand that the Lord described it as a day that have never been. All right, it's going to be a time of trouble since there has never been on the earth, and that's when the Messiah is going to come through and gather his elect. So anyway, it says, "Thus in wrath mercy is remembered, and gospel grace is a sovereign relief in reference to the terrors of the law and the desolations made by sin." It says, going into it, it was threatened, chapter 3, verse 25, and that's what I read. "Thy men shall fall by the sword, and the mighty in the war. That the mighty men shall fall by the sword in war." And it was threatened as a punishment to the women that affected gaiety, in a loose sort of conversation. What does that term mean? Probably means, that jolly spirit that they're in. That lottie-dottie. Yeah. The state or quality of being lighthearted or cheerful. Your cheerfulness, cheer, lightheartedness, merriment, glee, happiness, joy, delight, pleasure. And these women, they're living in pleasure, especially in this society in the West. They're living in complete pleasure, man. Jollity. So yeah, living in basically at ease. So it says a loose sort of conversation. Wanton eyes. They have the ability right now. They can choose who they want to be with. Like it says in Jeremiah, the Lord have made a new thing in the earth. A woman shall compass a man. So nowadays, women got more options than men have. Well, they can select their mates. They can choose what man they can get with. All right, to have a whole rotation. But a man, it's harder for him to get a rotation of women. So, these women, they have it like that where they can live and be loose. All right. Anyway, it says, now here we have the effect and consequence of that great slaughter of men, that though providence has so wisely ordered that com, com, uh, communibus annus on an average of years, there is nearly an equal number of females and it's like a number of males and females born into the world, in which I believe it's more than the Lord made more women than men. All right, I believe that, because the Lord said to be fruitful, and multiply. How's that gonna happen when you just got a bunch of men with a bunch of women? You know, um, that's a whole nother video. I can get into that a whole nother time. But the scriptures say 7 to 1. It says, through the devastations made by war, there should scarcely be one man in 7 left alive, as there are deaths attending the bringing forth of children, which are peculiar to the woman. And that's why Paul said about the woman that she shall be saved in childbearing, if she continue in faith, in charity, and in with all sobriety. All right, so you're gonna have women they're gonna be preserved for men of the Lord, so that they can bring forth children for those men. Because we know that 2 parts in this land is gonna be cut off and die. 2/3 gonna get wiped out. So they're gonna have to be brought back to rejuvenate. Just like when Noah and his 3 sons, they had to basically they had to be fruitful. So that's why the Lord preserved them with their wives, so that they can repopulate the earth. So it's going to be the same thing with when the elect are delivered. All right. It says, who was first in transgression, starting with Eve. So to balance that, there are deaths peculiar to men, those by the sword in the high places of the field, which perhaps devour more than childbed does. Here it is foretold that such multitudes of men should be cut off, that there should be 7 women to 1 man. This ain't happening in the kingdom, man. That by reason of the scarcity of men, though marriage should be kept for the raising of recruits and the preserving of the race of mankind upon earth, yet the usual method of it should be quite altered, that whereas men ordinarily make their court to the women should now take hold of the men, foolishly fearing, as Lot's daughters did when they saw the ruin of Sodom, and perhaps thought it reached further than it did. And they thought everybody was destroyed on earth when they saw that. So they was like, man, we need to bring forth, we need to repopulate. So they got their father drunk and they laid with him, all right, and brought forth them slanted eyed. Let me keep going. It says that in a little time there should be none left. Genesis 19:31. That whereas women naturally hate to come in sharers with others, and women hate that, they hate sharing. Seven should now by consent become the wives of one man, and that whereas by the law the husband was obliged to provide food and raiment for his wife. All right, and we know that according to the scriptures that the men who the Lord's going to be dealing with, they're going to have abundance. The Lord's going to make sure that they are right. Second Ezra 2, it talks about we're going to laugh in a time of famine and so on and so forth. Second Ezra 2 and verse 26, it says, as for the servants whom I have given thee, there shall not one of them perish, for I will require them from among thy number. Be not weary, for when the day of trouble and heaviness cometh, and everybody's going to be, in this time period of tribulation, others shall weep and be sorrowful, but thou shalt be merry and have abundance. So you already know what time it is. If these women can sense that the Lord is dealing with you in that day, and you know you're cool, calm, and collective. You're not you're not worrisome. You're not in fear. You know, you don't have you don't have your hands on your loins like a woman in travail, like it says in Jeremiah 30. The Lord is bringing peace to your tabernacle. These women are gonna be able to peep that quickly, and they're gonna want to join the team. Like I need to get with him. I don't care who he's with. I don't care. To take away that reproach from being single and not having any type of support or security, yeah, I got to get to him. All right. And it says that in Isaiah 32 as well, that a man shall be as a covert, from the tempest. So he's going to be as a hiding place, a covering. So women are going to want to definitely have some covering in that day. So let's go to Job 5, because this is what the Lord's going to do for his elect. Not every member of the elect are going to be martyrs and get decapitated. None of that, man. Is you're gonna have those who are that's gonna fulfill that role of being a martyr, but you're gonna have those who's gonna be alive and remaining. All right, where the Lord's gonna basically defend them and protect them. All right, so let's get Job 5 and 19, and it says, "He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword." Meanwhile, you're gonna have, these 2/3 niggas in the hood that's, shooting each other up. A lot of these niggas, they're gonna be getting drafted. So they're gonna be out there in the wars. Okay? And the Lord's gonna be with brothers, all right, that, because Esau, when he sends that draft, is required between a particular age range that you gotta go and serve. But the Lord's gonna be with his elect, and those men, they're not gonna go. The Lord's gonna make something happen to where brothers don't get jammed up. Esau don't try to come and snatch them out because they didn't go to get enlisted or whatever. But all these niggas in the hood, they definitely need to go. Instead of wasting bullets on each other, they can go. They can Esau can send their ass over there to the Middle East. because that's where it's going to go down at. It says, "Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh." Why? Because you're going to be satisfied. Okay, you're going to be able to eat, and these people are going to be starving. "Neither shalt thou be afraid of the beast of the earth, for thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beast of the field shall be at peace with thee." Meanwhile, you're going to have people getting ripped up by these wild beasts. It even says that in Apocrypha that, you know, wild beasts shall change their place. And that's going to be judgment within itself. Seeing people getting ripped up, mountain lions and all type of stuff out there. It says, "And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation and shall not sin." So the Lord's going to be with his men, his chosen. All right. Let's get Psalms 91 and verse 10. And it says, "There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways." See that? So the angels are going to be, with brothers, man. All right. And actually, reading up above verse 9, it says, "Because thou hast made the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling." So when you go back to that in Job 5, that's why it talks about peace, all right, upon your tabernacle. Job 5 and 24 says, "And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation." You make the Lord your habitation and shall not sin. All right. So you better believe these women, the Lord's gonna, give them that heightened sense to spot these men out there. Okay. So I'm gonna finish a little more of this and we'll close out. It says, I think I stopped here. It says that whereas women naturally hate to come in sharers with others, seven should now, by consent, become the wives of one man, and that whereas by the law the husband was obliged to provide food and raiment for his wife, which with which with many should be the most powerful argument against multiplying wives, these women will be bound to support themselves. They will eat bread of their own earning and wear apparel of their own working. So they're gonna be willing to, do it themselves. Like basically, I just want to be with a man. I don't care. You ain't gotta do, you know what I'm saying? You ain't gotta do nothing. We'll take care of it. We just want to be your wife. That's what the script. That's what this is saying. "And the man they court shall be at no expense upon them. Only they desire to be called his wives, to take away the reproach of a single life. They are willing to be wives upon any terms, though ever so unreasonable, and perhaps the rather because in these troublesome times it would be a kindness to them to have a husband for their protector." Okay, so there it is, man. I'm curious to see what this say. Oh, let me read a little more. It says, "Paul, on the contrary, thinks the single state preferable in a time of distress." 1 Corinthians 7 and 26. If if were well if this were not introduced here partly as a reflection upon the daughters of Zion, that notwithstanding the humbling providences they were under, they remained unhumbled, and instead of repenting of their pride and vanity when the Most High was contending with them for them, all their care was to get husbands that modesty which is the greatest beauty of the fair sex, was forgotten, and with them the reproach of vice was nothing to the reproach of virginity, a sad symptom of incoverable desolations of virtue. Okay, so I think Matthew Henry hit it on the head, you know, and that definitely contradicts what Nate is talking about. And scriptures was definitely used. You always got to reference scriptures and not misinterpreting the scriptures. So Nate is on that BS, man. But hey, we shall see in that day. So I'm gonna close out with that. And Lord willing, you brothers and you few sisters were edified. I'm gonna give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh Shem Shai. Shalom.